Would you like to get your misfiring hormones under control? I certainly do, and that's why I summarized all the practical and theoretical steps in this presentation. So what are you going to learn? First of all, what are hormones? These chemical messengers that rule the inner and outer world. And why am I saying it? Because they have impact on absolutely everything from the mood, memory, sleep, weight, appetite, energy, libido, and digestion. Did you know that? So once you understand the importance of it, we also want to look at your period and whether you are ovulating or not. Don't worry, this masterclass is also for women that had hysterectomy, that are on artificial hormones, or they are menopausal, because you are still going to learn, for example, about thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, and so on. But period, when you ovulate, when you cycle, you have natural flow of the hormones. So if you, during the masterclass, discover that your hormones are misfiring, we will look at the practical steps of how you can get them under control. But let me first tell you something about me. So I am a science-based nutritionist, but also hormone yoga therapist. So I absolutely love to marry the science and the spirituality together. So in every presentation, as you might know, I cover all the areas of well-being because I believe we need a holistic approach. So mental, what are your habits and why are you doing them? So what are you trying to escape? Why do you overeat? Why do you do certain things? What are the limiting beliefs that you have? Where did you take them? Where did you learn them? And are they serving you or not? And what about your brain chemistry? If you don't sleep well, if you don't eat well, if you are not genuinely happy with your life, the neurotransmitters might be misfiring. What about emotions? I work with so many women that are under a control of fear, anger, sadness, loneliness, and then they are looking for the happiness in the glass of wine or chocolate or chasing men just not to feel lonely. Don't worry, we are not going to cover this topic today, but I just wanted you to know. Physical, why are we moving? Some women, especially during the certain time of their period, they over-exercise and then they are blocking the most important hormone, which is progesterone. So you need to learn how to flow, how to understand your body, and how to exercise based on the hormones that you want to support. Inactivity is the opposite of it. So I'm not saying you have to hit the gym, not at all. But for example, hormone yoga therapy, you will be convinced at the end of this masterclass. Nutritional, obviously. As a nutritionist, I know the importance of the building blocks. And in this presentation, you are going to learn from the case study of Jane that had underactive thyroid. What was actually the root cause and how we removed it? So I know from the nutritional point of view, it's always the lack of knowledge. We are brainwashed by the marketing strategies that are all around us. And maybe they're not serving us. Yeah, so you need personalized approach in this way. And spiritual, it's nothing to do with religion. So don't think that I will try to convert you into a yogic being. No, no. Spirituality, it's the soul, it's the intuition, that whisper voice that is telling you that you should do something. So do you know what is the sense of purpose that you have? Why are you here? How are you going to contribute to this society? What is your vision and mission? Because if you have this, it's very easy to jump out of the bed in the morning knowing that you are going to contribute to others. Like I do this for you. That's my mission. And here is my personal story. So you would think, okay, nutritionist reading all the books that she has behind her. She must know it all. Yes, I know the theory. But what happened to me 1.5 years ago was that suddenly in the night, I was swimming in the sweat and my period was getting longer. I had sore breast and headaches that I never ever had before. So I am 44, almost 44 years old. I'm divorced. I'm single. I have 2 kids, and I run this busy uh, business that I have. So yeah, working 16 hours per day, helping the others, and then maybe not having enough time for me. So I went to the doctor for the regular control, and she did the smear test, and I had human papillomavirus positive results. And there are 14 different kinds, and 2 of them are carcinogenic. So I also had to do the biopsy, and she saw that some of the cells are already changing the shape. Me, from the biochemistry, I know that the cells, because before they turn into cancer, they replicate in a wrong way 6 times. So I knew that I'm on a wrong path. Then I ran another panel of the tests, which I do for my clients. And it was, for example, the anti-Müllerian hormone. And I discovered that it's very low. And I could predict that I'm getting into the perimenopause. And perimenopause starts 10 years before the menopause. Menopause in a healthy woman that has no stress and no inflammation in the body is between the age of 52 and 55. Unfortunately, I have many clients that go through the early menopause at the age of 40, 42, 44. So I knew that maybe I'm on this path as well. So then when I started digging into all this topic, searching on PubMed, reading again all the books about perimenopause, I found this scale of 9 signs and symptoms that are showing whether you are perimenopausal or not. And I hit 3 of them, which was sore breast, headache, irregular period, and actually for a little while even swimming in the sweat. So these night sweats. So my mission now is to reverse the perimenopause, which I did already for me, and I will share that in this presentation, how I did it, how I track it. But I also want you to start with the awareness, because everything starts with the awareness. Then accepting that there is maybe space for improvement, and then taking action. So are you ready to look at these 9 signs and symptoms of perimenopause? If so, let's look at it together. So, if you have noticed change in your menstrual cycle, so maybe it's getting heavier, and I mean really heavier than it used to be, and longer, or opposite of it, the cycles are really short and you might be bleeding even in between the period, and it's less than 25 days. Maybe, like me, you have noticed like sore breast, or maybe when you push actually into the nipples from the front, you feel that there are some lumps. Maybe your sleep is not what it used to be. So if you are tracking like me with the Aura ring, you can see whether you are going through all the 4 stages of the sleep. And if you started waking up in the night because you need to urinate and then you find it difficult to fall asleep, your hormones are out of balance. Let's continue. Maybe you have these menstrual cramps that are more intense what it used to be. Or maybe you didn't have any cramps or any PMS before, and now it's coming. So all these changes, as I had headaches, when I was bending my head, I saw that I had broken glass in my head and I don't take any medication. Suddenly, everything became really difficult for me. Running, exercising, concentrating on the work, you name it. Is this your case? What about migraines? Is it the front? Is it the back? Do you see any aura? Do you feel like to vomit? Just try to make notes, describe it, and then get back to me. What about mood swings? Do you feel like nobody around you understand you? Maybe even you don't recognize yourself from the person that was socializing and just enjoying easy life. Suddenly you feel miserable. Maybe you even have anxiety and depression for no reason, because all your life seems to be perfect on paper. Inside, you feel it's not yourself. What about abdominal weight? So despite eating healthily and exercising, you have noticed this fat like under the bra, and also the love handles and belly fat. So it's not on your legs. It might be actually in a face. It might be puffy face. Maybe you might have even a buffalo hump. So all these are signs of perimenopause. Your body is trying to talk to you. And of course, it might be different hormones at a different time, or it might be even the organs. So if you want to now dig even deeper into this topic, let's look what I have for you. But before we do so, I want to educate you on what are hormones, and take notes of this because you need to remember it. So hormones are chemical messengers and they are just triggering response. So it's like I have a mobile phone. My daughter is upstairs and she is point A. It's like the brain, and she is sending signal to me. I am the cell and I need to do something. So it's like an instruction that she's writing. And she, for example, types make pancakes. Yeah. And she writes it in a set of words so I can read it. Perfect. And I go to either make it or not. So for that, I need to have ingredients. So let's say that some of the hormones are made out of protein, amino acids. So protein is a chain. Imagine it like a pearl chain. And they're sitting next to each other. So each of them is amino acid in a protein chain. And certain of them we need for certain hormones. So maybe you have heard about insulin. So insulin is an anabolic hormone. It's a fat maker because the job of insulin is to take the glucose from the bloodstream, knock on the door of the cell, open the gate, take the glucose inside and turn it into energy. But insulin says, look, whatever I find in the blood, I am going to store. It's a storage hormone and it's released from the pancreas and it's made out of the protein. Then we have oxytocin and it's a beautiful hormone because oxytocin is a cuddling hormone. That's when you fall in love. You don't need to eat. You don't need to sleep. You feel absolutely fine, totally relaxed. You feel loved. I know it's not happening to us very often to fall asleep, yes. But fall in love, not so often. Okay, but this oxytocin is also released during the orgasm. It's cuddling. That's why women, especially women, fall in love after a couple of dates or a couple of amazing nights. But it's also released during the breastfeeding because it's a bonding hormone, mother and the child. Yeah. So the nature is very smart and it knows how to make us produce more hormones. And oxytocin is going to trigger cascade of other hormones. But now I want to bring your attention to melatonin. Melatonin is a sleeping hormone. And yeah, you can buy it in a pharmacy, but I never recommend supplementing this because it's a hormone. And every time when you are supplementing hormone, then you block the natural power of your body to release it. And melatonin we need in the night to fall asleep. And what happens is that normally when the darkness hits the retina in our eye, the brain starts to release the melatonin and we shift into the sleep. But did you know that melatonin is made out of serotonin? It has a similar molecular structure. There is only one molecule difference. And serotonin in the night is turned into melatonin. So if you feel happy, serotonin is a happy hormone, then you are more likely to fall asleep easily. And if you are under stress, depressed, you have anxiety, and you have low levels of serotonin, it might be more difficult for you to sleep. So how do we produce serotonin? It's in one of the modules of the Unlock the Secrets of Anti-Aging, where I talk about this, but I will share this with you as well. 75% of the serotonin is released from the gut, from our intestine, by the gut bacteria, and then it gets into the bloodstream, and it has effect on the cells in our body. So now you can see the gut-brain axis, how important it is to have a healthy microbiota. But we could spend a whole hour just talking about which probiotics and prebiotics are good for you and whether you should or shouldn't supplement them. So now you know about these amino acid hormones. But then we have other hormones that are very important, and that's steroid hormones. So maybe you have heard about steroids. Usually bodybuilders are taking steroids to pump up the muscle. So steroid hormones are actually sex hormones. Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, but also vitamin D. It is a steroid hormone, thyroid hormones, and cortisol. And they are made out of protein, so you know what we need to eat, and from fat. So now you know that we actually need fat. Do you see anywhere sugar? Do we need sugar? No. We need protein and fat, yeah? And today we will be talking a lot about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But now when I see vitamin D, let me just tell you that from all the blood test results that are interpreted for my clients, I always see that they are deficient in vitamin D. I therefore invite you to get this checked. You can get a prescription from your doctor and then go to the laboratory. Or if you live in France, like in Basel area, it's like €7 to get this blood test done in any laboratory in France, probably in Switzerland as well, Germany, from wherever you are watching. And now nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is actually in the beetroot, for example, and it's very important for the blood flow to the brain, but even blood flow to our organs. So for example, men that have erectile dysfunction, they are very low in nitric oxide. And Viagra, this blue pill, is actually made out of nitric oxide. So that shows you how important it is to have this signaling molecule in our body, because it's also a messenger. And then we have prostaglandins. And prostaglandins are actually inflammatory. And you know that when you are ill, when you have flu, you have sore body, it's because you have high level of prostaglandins that create this inflammation. And the body says, oh, slow down, lie in the bed, because we need to relax. So if you have sore joints and pains and you feel constantly tired, you should get your blood test checked for the interleukin-6 and CRP and see whether you have inflammation in your body. Here you have a beautiful picture of what it looks like. So you can see the pearls are actually the hormones, and the line is the receptors to which the hormone needs to connect. So it's like lock and the key, and then it goes into the cell, and the cell reads the message and makes whatever it's supposed to make. So I told you that there might be actually some obstacles. So if my daughter, who is upstairs just now, sends me the message to my mobile phone, what can go wrong? I'm making this presentation. I'm recording it for you. I don't have my mobile phone on, so I don't get the message. And she thinks, okay, I'm going to phone her and send it again and again and again and again. She starts to bombard me with messaging. And that's what can happen even in the brain. The hypothalamus thinks, okay, the glands in the body are not reacting to my messages. I'm going to send even more and more and more. And when I'm going to show you the case study of Jane, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. How her brain hormones, the hypothalamus, was firing to send a signals to the glands to make something, or to the cells. Okay, that's the first thing that can go wrong. What else? Different language. Well, my daughter decides to send me a message in Chinese. Well, I don't speak Chinese, so I don't even know what she wants me to do. So I might either predict, okay, maybe she wants to eat. Maybe she wants me to come up. I don't know. So I might misfire. I might do something wrong, right? Because I'm the cell that is supposed to do it. The third thing, overload and resistance. She's bombarding me with messages so often and so much that I just decide to do it, right? Because like she's shouting, screaming for help. Third obstacle. And the fourth one, missing or broken building blocks. So what everything can be broken. She might be broken, right? And she might be writing nonsense. I might be broken because I'm so overworked that I don't even know, like I'm forgetting what I'm supposed to do. Or the hormones, the messages, the words might be broken because maybe her keyboard was not working properly, and she did not put the words in a correct form. So maybe she would want to write Blanca, but she writes Aknab or bag, bog, bong, and then I cannot understand it. So you see that if the hormones are made out of some particles, like, for example, thyroid hormones are made from zinc, amino acids, tyrosine, and from the iodine, if this is missing, me as a cell, I cannot build it, or as a gland, I cannot build it. So you can see so many obstacles can go wrong. Let me show you the endocrine system, the hormonal system. So when I'm going to talk about the hormone yoga therapy, I'll be talking about this. So let me circle around. The first one is the hypothalamus. It is the master, is the CEO of the body that gets the messages from the neurons, from the nerves of everything that's happening in the body. It's like spies bringing the messages, and then says what needs to be done. Then we have, for example, a thyroid hormone, and thyroid hormones are very important for the temperature and metabolism, so burning calories, sleeping well, sending messages to the ovaries, and so on. And then we have adrenal gland, which you can see, it's this tiny triangle sitting above the kidneys. And that's what I'm going to talk about just now. So adrenal gland, imagine it, it's like a factory. And this factory has one production line. So it can produce one product at one particular time. That's absolutely clear, right? I have one oven and I can bake only one thing at a time. So let's say that this adrenal gland, the factory, decides to bake a cake, and it needs some ingredients. It needs cholesterol. So you see, avoiding eggs or avoiding some kind of cheese or whatever might not be so smart, because you need cholesterol. It's a building block. And then it goes. It says, okay, we have the building block in a storage. What are we going to produce today? And if you are under stress and your body signals that you need cortisol all the time, it's going to steal from the other ones, right? So there's this fork. So you are producing cortisol. And what are you then not able to create? Is the DHEA, the use hormone, testosterone, and estrogen. If you don't have enough estrogen, you are not going to ovulate. If you don't ovulate, you are not going to produce corpus luteum. If you don't have corpus luteum, this temporary gland, you are not going to have progesterone. And if you don't have progesterone, you will feel really miserable. Can you see that? Yeah. So the aim is to calm the nervous system. And that's what I will teach you as well. So you saw that we have thyroid gland, but let me tell you that thyroid is really important for all the other hormones, right? So it's almost like a boss, not the main boss, but it's one of the managers in the body. So first of all, there are all the blood tests that you should do, and that's what I do with my clients, to interpret the function of the thyroid hormones, right? So it's the TSH, it's the thyroid stimulating hormone, which is this metabolic switch. It says what is supposed to be done and what's not supposed to be done. And the other ones are like other markers. So what are the signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism? Hypo, low, so underactive thyroid. Waking up already very tired. So if you feel like an 80-year-old woman, sore joints and feet, and you cannot do it without the first thing, coffee in the morning, to kind of kickstart you, it might be underactive thyroid hormone. Weight gain and carbs craving. Yeah, you are trying to stay away from carbohydrates like bread, pasta, rice, but you don't feel fulfilled and satisfied without the carbs, because your body says, hey, we don't have energy, I'm not going to survive without that. Thyroid is not working, the insulin is not working, just please give me the carbs, the easiest energy. Mood swings, depression and anxiety, even high cholesterol. And you are like surprised, maybe you are 35 and you already have high cholesterol at this age. Why is it? Well, it's because of the thyroid. Maybe you are constipated. And what means constipation? So If you do, it's in a module 4 of the Eat Clean Get Lean. Module 3, beetroot test, because you want to know the transit time. So if you eat, for example, beetroot, and then you do the beetroot test, like you check your poo, is it there after 12 hours, 24, 48, 72? So from this information, I can already tell you what's causing bloating, whether you are constipated, and what to do about it. So keep track and then get back to me. Easy bruising. You hit yourself and you are bruising very easily. Why? Because your blood vessels are really weak and they're bursting. Blood clotting, another quite dangerous thing, because you don't want to have any clots. You don't want to have thrombus. You definitely don't want to have any risk of cardiovascular disease. Joints and muscle pain. So even without exercising, it's there. It's almost like this fibromyalgia. It's like when you push into some points, it's really sensitive, and maybe you can even hear the squeaking. Dry skin on hands, maybe even in your hair, maybe you like even have itchy skin, maybe you have rosacea, and there's absence of sweating. So sweating is actually healthy because it shows that your thyroid is working well and it's eliminating the toxins. So if you have, for example, stinky underarm, that's sex hormones imbalance, and the clotted liver, but if you're not sweating at all, we need to get that under control. Low libido and fertility problems, because obviously the thyroid is sending messages and instructions to the ovaries. If there is an underactive thyroid, it's not going to send signals to the ovaries. And then the follicles are not going to grow, and you are not going to feel the libido at the time of the ovulation. You are not going to maybe ovulate at all. And if you get pregnant, there might be a chance of miscarriages. Nobody wants that. So really get your thyroid hormones checked. Okay, I was talking about the thyroid hormone, ovulation, and progesterone. So let's look at it a little bit deeper. So maybe you have noticed in your blood test that you have high prolactin. So prolactin is a hormone, it's for the lactation. So it's absolutely fine if this hormone is very high when you give birth and you are breastfeeding, because there is no time, or the body, the nature doesn't want that you get pregnant again. So obviously you have no menstruation, you are not ovulating, and you don't have progesterone, right? So the progesterone goes down after you give birth. But if you are not breastfeeding, and if you are losing hair, if you are quite skinny, if you are bloated, chances are your thyroid hormone is not working well, and the prolactin might be high. Maybe you have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So what that means? You have many cysts in your ovaries. And why? Because your hormones were dysregulated, and they actually grew too many eggs in one go, rather than letting one major to grow and then burst and ovulate. Yeah. And then the cysts, because they did not grow to the time and they did not burst, they are staying there. Very often, the polycystic ovarian syndrome is connected with insulin resistance. So insulin resistance, you most probably learned about it in the Eat Clean Get Lean week 1. Are you riding the blood glucose roller coaster? So you probably know it. But what it means is that the insulin, the anabolic hormone, is knocking on the doors of the cell, like me, trying to deliver a message. And I just say, no, I'm refusing to create energy. I am refusing to burn the energy. I'm just refusing to work. So this is insulin resistance. And there are certain things that you need to do to become insulin sensitive again. Maybe you have low progesterone. So now you understand that if you don't have healthy ovulation, you cannot produce corpus luteum and you cannot have progesterone, right? So you can see how it all connects together. Maybe you have heavy or irregular bleeding. So heavy bleeding is always a sign that your estrogen was skyrocketing and then it crashed down, right? So it was building a really thick lining in your uterus. And then as the uterus is contracting, you have really lots of menstrual pain and lots of heavy bleeding. This is misregulated hormones, and yeah, you need to get that under control. Infertility and miscarriage, obviously, because if you don't have a certain amount of estrogen and certain amount of progesterone, they're like brother and sister, right? Opposing each other. One is one at the time, down, up, down, but they need to be rebalanced. Hair loss and dry skin, fluid retention, because then your kidneys are not working in a proper way, maybe cold hands and feet, digestive issues, so lots of bloating because you actually cannot digest the food, and SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So the bacteria from the large intestine got into the small intestine, which is an absolute mess, and then you really need to follow a special protocol. Maybe you even have a brain fog. It feels like a whale over your eyes. You cannot focus and concentrate properly on what you want to do, and you're forgetful. Mood swings and depression. So what can you do about it? Let's look at this beautiful organ. Okay, so here you see the uterus. Here you can see the endometriosis, fibroids. Here you can see the eggs and the follicles. Fallopian tubes, that's when the egg is traveling down and it's going to meet the sperm and create beautiful babies. So here are all the markers, biochemical markers, that I recommend my clients get before they start with the hormone yoga therapy, before they take any supplements or change their nutritional needs. And here we talk about follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. So these hormones are in the brain. Corpus luteum, I already mentioned that it is a temporary gland only if you are ovulating, and it produces progesterone. Estradiol is the most potent estrogen. We have about 3 estrogens, but estradiol is the most potent one for women that are still having the menstrual cycle. And you can, from the blood tests, predict the perimenopause or menopause based on these tests when you do them in a certain time of your menstrual cycle. And then testosterone, prolactin, and sex hormone binding globulin. Yeah, so this is a protein carrier, because remember that the sex hormones are made out of fat, cholesterol, and you know that you cannot mix fat with water. This is not going to float in it. So these sex hormones are using taxi drivers, taxi transporters, and this is called sex hormone binding globulin. So it binds to this globulin, this protein, and it travels and it's delivered to the cells in the body that have the right receptor for that. Here we go. This is a case study. So case study of Jane. Obviously, Jane is not the real name. I changed it. Amazing girl, 42, and she shared her story. So she told me, look, I'm 42. I have to put the makeup on all the time because I have this terrible acne. It's not only on my face, it's actually even on my chest, on my back, and even my bum. So it has impact on my self-esteem. Obviously, I don't even want to date. Like, who would date me? And she felt tired all the time. So despite doing Pilates and actually eating quite healthily, she didn't know why she's so tired. She had low libido, and for 7 years, she didn't have menstrual cycle, which is really unusual at this age. She also had sleep problems, and she used like different techniques to make her fall asleep. She also suffered from migraines, and she was taking the ibuprofen to deal with it, which obviously had an impact. It made irritation in the stomach lining, and because she was also using alcohol to fall asleep and a little bit of carbs, that was a horrible combination. So I told her she had only basic health insurance in Switzerland, and it didn't really make sense to go to the doctor, pay 220 Swiss francs for the visit, and begging the doctor for the blood tests, which wouldn't be anyway prescribed. And she would anyway have to pay it because she had a high franchise. So she went to France because I have this list of what you can ask, how much it's going to cost. And so based on her budget, we created what she needs. Okay, but let me go to that. So it's in French. Let's practice the French together. So when she told me about fatigue, I thought, okay, maybe she has anemia. So we checked her red blood cells, size of the red blood cells, white blood cells, and so on. But that's not what I'm showing you here. Here is iron. So iron is actually a heavy toxic metal. We never want to supplement it if it's not needed. So be careful. And you can see that she had 20.8 and 26 is the maximum. So she actually has quite a lot of iron. And I told her, don't supplement it at all because you have this building block. Then we looked at ferritin because she said, oh, my doctor told me that I'm low in iron. And I said, no, you're not low in free iron, the metal. You are low in a protein storage ferritin, and this is in the liver, and you have only 39. That's really low because optimal is 80. So what is causing this? She has the iron. Why is it not stored in the liver? We looked at the transferrin. So transferrin, it's like transporter, right? I told you already about the sex hormones that need transporters, but even metals, they cannot travel in the bloodstream. They need a transporter. So we looked at this transferrin, 2.68, not bad. So she has the transporters. We also look at the fixation, how they're like sticking to it, and the saturation. How many of them, how many of the free iron passengers are jumping into the taxi driver? 31%, not bad. The taxi has 4 places, right? One is for the like driver, and then it can take 3 passengers. So 31% out of 40 is not bad. What can be the reason now? Well, I looked at the CRP, C-reactive protein. Protein again, you can hear it. Everything is made out of protein. And this is showing silent inflammation. If this marker is high, careful. But her one is under 1. It's fine. So what else can that be? We looked at the thyroid stimulating hormone. That's what the hypothalamus, right? The CEO starts to say. And I could see 2.7. It is slightly higher than the other blood tests that I usually interpret. So I was thinking, okay, let's look at the other ones, T3 and T4. So T3 is tyrosine. It's one amino acid, tyrosine, from animal products, and 3 iodines, iod, 3 molecules of iod. So it's connected together and it makes the thyroid hormone. So the thyroid gland, where it's produced, can make it only when it has the building blocks. And T4 is basically inactive. It's like a storage of these thyroid hormones. They are already there, then they need to be activated. So in the activation, it's like a grenade. So it has 4 iodines, and when you make, you activate it, right? So we usually have more of the 3T4, the inactive form, but you can see she had only 10.09, totally under the lowest level, that is 12. So she didn't have the thyroid hormones. And let's look at the active thyroid. My goodness, also not having it. So what can be the cause? Can that be the building blocks that she doesn't have? Let me see. Exactly, that's it. Because I told you that to manufacture the thyroid hormone, we need thyroid with 4 iodines, and then the active one is thyroid with 3 iodines. How much of the iodine iod does she have? 236, and 315 is the absolute minimum. So the brain, the TSH, was shouting, hey, thyroid gland, are you not forgetting to make thyroid hormones? But the thyroid gland couldn't make it because it didn't have the ingredients to make it. Also, it's not only tyrosine and the iodine, but it's also zinc in this molecular structure. And look at her zinc, 11.1. It's quite low as well. So we also looked at the cholesterol. Look at her cholesterol levels, 7.33. A 42-year-old girl having so high cholesterol. Why? Because thyroid hormones are needed for the metabolism to utilize actually the calories, to burn it, to break it down, to create the energy, to have the healthy menstruation. You can see that she was missing everything that was her problem. So why does she have skin issues? Because she doesn't have enough zinc, right? Why is she not absorbing the iron? Because we actually need other building blocks, and we need the thyroid hormones to send the signals to absorb the iron and increase the ferritin. Why is she not having period for 7 years? Well, obviously, if the thyroid is not sending the signals to the ovaries, she couldn't ovulate. Why does she have the high cholesterol? Because she's not having the speeded metabolism. So what did I tell her to do? Of course, I told her to take 20 milligrams of the zinc, and this is only for her, and it's at certain time of the day, not combining with any other minerals, food, and so on, right? No coffee, no tea, nothing, because that would block the absorption. I told her to take vitamin C. She didn't have constipation, so I was kind of like careful of how much of it to recommend. I told her to take definitely vitamin A, because we know that for the skin, for the sebum, we need vitamin A and zinc and vitamin C, right? So that was not only for the skin, but also for the thyroid, and then selenium and copper, because copper is helping the absorption of the iron, and selenium is needed for a healthy menstrual cycle. And yeah, she's still working on that, and I'm going to see her on Sunday and see how she's doing. Let me see if, yes, I want to also show you her sex hormones. Okay, so I told you that Jane didn't have menstruation for 7 years because she had this underactive thyroid. She didn't have the building blocks. So normally, when I'm interpreting the sex hormones, I always want to know what was the day of your menstrual cycle when you were doing it. And I recommend for my clients, I always recommend based on their cycle, a certain day that will help me to know exactly when to do the tests. But let's look at her. So I told you that estradiol is the most potent sex hormone. And you can see that in this case, she would be almost like menopausal, because it's very, very low number. You can see that, for example, even in a follicular phase, ovulation or luteal phase, it's usually around 180. That's the typical number. And she had only 92. Anti-Müllerian hormone, that's the one where I predict how many eggs she still has, like ovarian reserve, and in how many years she's going to have the perimenopause or menopause. It's actually not that bad. So I know that we can restore her menstrual cycle. She's definitely not perimenopausal yet. And then we look also at the follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So normally when you are perimenopausal or menopausal, these two hormones are screaming, shouting. You can see it, menopause from 25 to 135. So she's far away from this. So it's good news. She's not perimenopausal at all. And then we look at progesterone, which is terribly low. And progesterone is anti-inflammatory hormone. That's why she has acne. She's not ovulating. She doesn't have progesterone. She has bad skin, bad hair, and so on, and no libido. So now we are going to even take action on this with special supplements to support the menstrual cycle. Okay, now what are all these sex hormones? So why should you care? Maybe you have now checked your blood test results, and maybe you see that you are perimenopausal, you have really heavy period, pain, and all of this, and you wonder if it's because of the estrogen. So let me tell you more about estrogen. So estrogen is the main driver of female reproduction. If you don't have certain levels of the estrogen, you are not going to have a healthy ovulation, and you will not be able to conceive. And estrogen is actually even a happy hormone, right? It's like a young masculine energy. And so, for example, when I'm preparing the personalized exercise plan for my female clients, I always ask them, about their menstrual cycle, because I want to understand where they are. Because if they tell me, look, I'm just now building into the ovulation, I tell them, look, this is the really good time to do the high intensity interval training and going for a run and so on. You will feel happy. You will not need to eat carbohydrates as much because this gives you energy. So what is the superpower of the estrogen? So it improves learning and memory. That's the best time to do the examination. It's the best time to do this public speaking because you will feel really confident, providing you have sufficient levels of estrogen. And it promotes the skin collagen and elasticity. So you know that in the perimenopause and especially menopause, the skin is getting really loose. It has no shine and the skin is dry. It's because the estrogen levels went down and the collagen is breaking down. So the elasticity is not there anymore. You can even hear more the squeaky joints. Estrogen helps to boost serotonin, dopamine, and then, even melatonin. So you even sleep better, providing it's not skyrocketing, but it's in the healthy levels. And it helps to prevent diabetes and blood glucose roller coasters or imbalances because it increases the insulin sensitivity. So you are reacting to the food more, right? The insulin opens the gates and creates the energy. And so you don't need to eat anything more. You don't have the cravings that you would normally have. And it also promotes the muscle and tissue growth. So estrogen is like testosterone for men. So for estrogen is for women. And that's why during the menopause, women lose the muscle mass. You can see that they have like skinnier legs. They lose the beautiful bum that they used to have, which is a sign of fertility. And they are now growing the belly fat, fat on the arms, on the face, on the neck, and the buffalo. Yeah. So we can even absolutely reverse this. If you see any signs like that, get it under control. So it's a kink. But now let's look even at the other one, and that's progesterone. So progesterone is the opposite of it, right? So it's the yin, it's the night, it's the calm energy. You know, the yin yoga, calming one. So this comes in the second part of the menstrual cycle, and that's why we want to be more intuitive, dip into our creativity, maybe be even more introverted. That's not the time to do any hard exercise or showing up to the world what's in you. It's the preparation time. So it's a calming hormone. Maybe you know it as a pregnancy hormone because when the woman conceives for the first 3 months, it's actually the corpus luteum that is still producing the progesterone. And then it's actually the placenta that starts to produce really high levels of progesterone. And after giving birth, when placenta is not there anymore and there is no ovulation, so no corpus luteum, the progesterone is so low. And what happens to women? They start losing hair. They feel depressed and stressed. And suddenly all the inflammation comes. Inflammation in the breast and vaginal inflammation and this and that. So it's really wise to even think about this in advance and take certain steps to increase naturally the progesterone levels. So what are the superpowers of the progesterone? You really want healthy levels of the progesterone if you want to have easy flow of your period, because progesterone is going to make thinner uterine lining. So then when you have the menstruation, there is not that much blood and there are no menstrual cramps of shedding the uterus. It also prevents the breast cancer because it is anti-inflammatory. It boosts the thyroid hormone. Why? Because progesterone actually helps us to utilize the fat as the energy. Yeah. It raises the body temperature. And in the following slides, I will show you exactly from data from my Aura ring, how you can see my menstrual cycle and how much of the progesterone I create. and it reduces the inflammation. So we really need to have certain levels of progesterone. It promotes the sleep and calms the nervous system. After all, it's yin energy. And it protects against the heart disease. You understand why you need it now? Let's look at testosterone. Very often women think, hey, testosterone is only for men. You are far away from true, because we need testosterone, but how much is too much? So sometimes I feel like I have way too much testosterone because this aggressiveness, leadership, managing everything, growing the muscle mass, ability to take risks, being very competitive, and having this physical and mental energy, and libido and clitoral sensitivity and desire. So sometimes I feel like I have all of that, and then I need to make sure I increase the progesterone and I do the yin yoga. So we want it, but not as much. We need to know how to balance it every single day. So how do you know if you are low in estrogen? So if you have dry nose and dry eyes, dry vagina, and if you have, for example, constipation, or you don't have enough mucus in your intestinal lining, it might be because you don't have enough estrogen. And obviously you are not ovulating as well. You might even have urinary tract infections, because if you don't have enough mucus in your vagina, then it cannot trap the bacteria and it can get into your urinary tract, causing infection. Maybe you have even chronically high cortisol levels. So it's the stress hormone, and it might be psychological stress, physical stress, mechanical stress. Maybe you have belly fat. You're growing the belly fat, the sign of perimenopause. Dry skin, dull hair, memory and concentration problems, mood swings, depression, hot flashes, because the thermoregulation, the thyroid doesn't know what to do with, headaches, migraines, and low libido. Maybe you have very high estrogen, because in the perimenopause, which starts at the age of 35 until 52, you might notice at certain time of your period, water retention. So you have puffy face, puffy fingers, puffy ankles, or you feel completely swollen. You are even bloated. You seem like you are retaining the water everywhere in the body. You also might have the constipation, because it's not reabsorbing, and that's why you have so much estrogen, because it gets into the portal vein, it gets back into the liver, and the liver is sending it back into the system, so it's acting once more on the cells. So way too much estrogen. Maybe you have fibroids, endometriosis, heavy periods, painful periods, premenstrual syndrome, headaches, migraines, fibrocystic breast or ovarian cancer, high cortisol, stress, hyperinsulinemia. So you have way too much insulin. You would see this marker in your blood test, and insulin resistant. So the insulin cannot actually do its action. The cells are resisting, and it's circulating in the blood, and it's inflammatory, right? Anabolic, building, storing all the fat, high cholesterol levels. And maybe you are overweight. Let's see if you are low in testosterone. So if you are very low in testosterone, you will have abdominal fat, low libido, enlarged breast, this is for men, enlarged prostate, reduced muscle mass, fatigue, pain, poor memory, and so on. So what can we do about it? So in the next video, we are going to dive into ovulation, why we need to ovulate, and how to track the menstrual cycle.